Here, Patrick is out with Harley, and you're going to see that Harley is dragging a long line. That's because this is the way we often start our training sessions, and this is what you're seeing is a fairly typical training session. You'll note that Harley is sticking with Patrick, and when Patrick backs up and bends over a little bit, gives the hand signal for come, Harley comes and sits. You see the tail wagging. That's a good sign. What we're after in this training session is to emulate, out like hiking with your dog in the woods or going to the park and just hanging out with your dog. We don't want them under super tight heel conditions. The line is off now and this dog's completely loose. But what we want is the dog romping and playing as Harley is doing here. But we want the dog to be paying attention to the handler so that if the handler walks away, asks for a come, we can get that even if it's off a squirrel. There, Harley got a little treat for doing the come. We sometimes give treats, but not always. We don't want to hook the dog on that. Tail's up, tail's wagging, he's happy. When Patrick turns, we want the dog to notice that the handler has turned away and to allow us essentially to pick where in this big giant open space are we going. So they are out there loose on a couple few acres of fenced in property. Harley is wearing the vibrating remote training collar, and if he loses focus to the point where he sees a squirrel and he goes after it, Patrick can talk to him from a big distance, but in a scenario like this, he will be using it very sparingly. And you can see that tail going, super happy. When we do use the remote collar, we use it on very low levels, and we train the dog to respond to the tiniest of little sensations. Every time Patrick changes directions, we want the dog to notice that. But we still want him to feel at liberty to enjoy his day. We just want to feel that we can control him, stop him, ask him to come and sit like this in this big open space. And that would be even if there's distractions. Big happy tail wags. Harley come. Harley sit. Good boy. Let's go. In this case, Patrick paused for a moment, wanted to pet him, just showed him I'm going to ask you to sit there for just a second before we move on. So now we'll move on. Sometimes we move on quickly. Sometimes we ask the dog to sit there for a good couple minutes. You see Harley shaking every once in a while. He's still getting used to his shorter haircut. And it's cold out today. So he's used to having a lot more hair. But what a happy guy. Let's go. That's really it. Once in a while, we'll say let's go if we're changing directions to let the dog know, hey, keep an eye. We're switching it up. When we want the dog to come, we are saying, Harley, come, giving a little bit of body language, as you can see here. The reason Patrick's twisting around is we want to teach the dog, follow me. It's not going to be so easy always to come to me. I want you to have to put out a little effort there. So get back here. And Harley's doing a great job of that. There's going to come a point here, and I'll point it out when Harley sees a squirrel, and it's right there. And that's when Patrick buzzes and says, Harley, come. And Harley's like, okay, I'll get that squirrel next time. But right now I got to come to you. And that's great. So there's where there's like a little extra reward in it for that one, that he got a treat, because that's hard to do. And we want to give the dog a treat. Now you'll notice he's looking right where that squirrel was, right there. He's like, the squirrel was there. So he misses the Patrick is turn. He's thinking about that squirrel, but Pat says, hey, come on, let's go. And Harley says, okay, here we are. Now he passed Patrick, so Patrick just does a long-range recall. Come, good boy, get in here. And sit.